She pointed a taser at my wife. That's how this whole nightmare started. Right there in the middle of the community park, under the HOA's precious oak gazebo, a man held a weapon on the woman I love, while the HOA president stood behind him like she was directing a play. You ever feel your blood go cold, but your voice has to stay calm? That was me watching power dress itself up as authority. Derek Vaughn, the HOA's self-appointed security chief, had his arm-locked straight taser aimed squarely at Marisol. Behind him, Karen Hallbrook, queen of Crescent Hollow Estates, crossed her arms and said, "If your wife refuses to comply, we'll consider this a safety threat." I could taste metal in my mouth. "You don't have any authority," I told her. "That man's holding a weapon in public without a license, and you're calling it code enforcement." She smirked like she'd just won an argument. "Mr. Morales, you're free to file another complaint." She had no idea who she was talking to. I wasn't some disgruntled homeowner. I was a retired internal affairs investigator. I'd spent 10 years watching cops get drunk on power. I knew exactly what I was looking at. Marisol stood still calm, collecting the violation papers Karen had thrown at her for photographing restricted signage. Then her purse slipped. Keys, phone, wallet, and her badge fell onto the concrete, flashing the county seal in the sun. Derek froze. The taser in his hand twitched downward. Karen's voice cracked. "Wait, is she?" Marisol looked up, voice steady. "Detective Morales, Sheriff's Department. You just threatened an officer of the law." You could have heard a pin drop. Every neighbor filming from their porch suddenly realized they weren't watching HOA business, they were watching a crime. That moment flipped everything. But it didn't start there. It started 3 months earlier when we moved to Crescent Hollow to find peace. I'd left law enforcement to run a small consulting business. Marisol was still active duty, and we wanted quiet evenings, desert sunsets, a normal life. Instead, we found a community run like a private dictatorship. At first, it was little things. Letters about trimming our mesquite tree too irregularly, warnings for leaving recycling bins visible. Annoying, sure, but tolerable. Until the fines started. $900 because Marisol parked near the curb during a monsoon. That day she stood in the rain, drenched and shaking, and said, "They don't care about safety. They care about control." I should have listened harder. Then came Derek, ex-military, self-declared enforcer. He drove his truck around like a tank, flashing fake security patrol decals. The HOA called it safety. Everyone else called it intimidation. I tried to stay civil, but after that taser incident, something in me snapped back into investigator mode. The deputies came, took statements, but no one was arrested. Not yet. Karen called it a misunderstanding. That word again, the shield of every tyrant. By the time the sun went down, the neighborhood was already whispering. Maybe she overreacted. Karen's just trying to keep things safe. People love pretending control is protection. That night I sat at our dining table with my laptop and a pile of HOA letters. Every fine, every timestamp, every note. My old instincts kicked in, build a pattern, follow the money. I noticed every violation had been issued after hours. HOAs can't legally enforce anything outside business hours, unless they're under a formal contract. Ours wasn't, which meant Derek wasn't security, he was a vigilante with a clipboard and a taser. The next morning I went to the HOA office. Karen sat behind her glass desk, pearls glinting like polished lies. "Mr. Morales," she smiled, "how can we help you today?" I slid a records request across the desk. "I need copies of all financial statements and any security-related expenses from the past year." Her fingers froze on the keyboard. "Those aren't public." I tapped the Arizona statute I'd printed. "They are if community funds were used for safety operations." Her smile cracked just a little. "I'll consult our treasurer," she said. "You do that?" I answered. On my way out, I passed Tom Becker, the maintenance guy. He looked nervous. "You okay, Tom?" I asked. He glanced around and muttered, "You might want to check your cameras. Sometimes things get reset after hours." That word again, reset. Sure enough, that night Derek's truck showed up on my driveway camera at 2:37 a.m. He didn't get out, just sat there with the lights on, then drove off. A message: "I'm watching you." But fear wasn't new to me. I'd seen men like him crumble once light hit the truth. A few days later, I found Tom sweeping behind the maintenance shed, eyes darting around. I told him straight, "You know this neighborhood's heading somewhere ugly." He sighed, voice trembling. "You think I don't know that I've worked for 3 HOAs? They all bend rules. But this one—" He hesitated. "This one's different. Derek thinks he is the law, and Karen signs everything. Half the invoices are fake." He swallowed hard. "Check the storage invoices, section D." Then he walked away before anyone saw us talking. That night I broke into the HOA's online inventory system, default password of course. Found it. 2 fake companies, both created within 6 months, both listing lighting maintenance. Same vendor ID, same signature Karen's. They'd been funneling HOA money into a fake security division to buy restricted gear. Cameras, uniforms, tasers, all under the guise of beautification. I gathered everything: screenshots, receipts, timestamps, and filed them. No emotion, no revenge. Just procedure. Truth builds quietly like pressure before a storm. Days later, Karen retaliated. Flyers appeared around the neighborhood warning about hostile residents under investigation. Our address circled in red. That one hit deep. I remember sitting on the porch thinking maybe this wasn't worth it. Maybe we were making it worse. Maybe it would be easier to sell the house and move again. Marisol sat beside me, quiet, letting me spiral. Then she said, "You've spent your whole life chasing accountability. Don't stop now because it's uncomfortable." I looked at her and realized she was right. If we walked away, Karen would win, and she'd just move on to her next victim. So I filed a formal complaint with the county's Community Fraud Division. Sent everything. The response came fast. Investigation accepted. Preliminary review underway. That's when the silence from the HOA started. Meetings behind closed doors. New security alerts. Karen was losing control, and people like her don't go quietly. Then Tom showed up again, shaking, sweating, eyes wide. "She's shredding documents," he whispered. "Told Derek to wipe the emails. But I manage the backups. She doesn't know the system auto-saves everything." He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Invoices, emails, everything. I couldn't just watch anymore. That flash drive felt heavier than it should have. Proof of fraud, misuse of funds, even messages where Karen mocked homeowners, calling them sheep liabilities easy to control. She'd used fear as currency, and Tom had just cut off her supply. I spent that night in my office downtown piecing it all together. Hundreds of files, dozens of emails. Destroy backups after import. No duplicates. The kind of line that buries people. I wrote my report the way I used to when I was still internal affairs, calm, detailed, unshakable. By midnight it was filed under fraud and oversight case ID C48173. The next morning Crescent Hollow looked as perfect as ever. Sprinklers ticking, flags waving, but underneath something had shifted. I called for a special homeowners meeting. According to the bylaws, 10 signatures could force one. I had 30. Karen couldn't stop it without breaking her own rules. By the time I arrived at the clubhouse, word had spread. Neighbors filled every chair. Karen sat at the front, clipboard in hand, smile painted on. Derek stood in the corner, arms folded, eyes cold. "Mr. Morales," she said sweetly, "I hope this isn't another performance." "No," I said. "Just a presentation." I connected my laptop to the projector. 3 months ago, this board claimed to create a security division. What you didn't tell residents is that this division doesn't legally exist. You used community funds to buy restricted equipment under fake vendors. Her smile faltered. "That's outrageous." "Really?" I clicked to the next slide. Her signature appeared right beside a vendor record linked to Derek's cousin's company. Gasps rippled through the room. Derek's face drained of color. "This isn't about rules," I continued. "It's about power and money. Over $14,000 diverted into unauthorized purchases. And when one of those items, a taser, was pointed at my wife, the illusion of authority collapsed. Karen slammed her clipboard down. "This is slander. You'll regret." The door opened behind her. 2 county auditors stepped in, badges visible. "Mr. Morales, one said we received your report. Mind if we observe?" Karen froze. Derek took a step back. "By all means," I said, stepping aside. The room erupted in whispers. Karen tried to adjourn the meeting, but residents shouted her down. A vote was called, impromptu but unanimous, to suspend the current HOA board pending investigation. The gavel fell from her hand. For the first time since we moved there, I saw Crescent Hollow breathe. The next morning, Marisol came home from her shift, coffee in hand. "They arrested Derek at 2 a.m., she said. "Fraud and impersonating security personnel." I exhaled slowly. "And Karen?" "Today," she said. "County subpoena. They're serving her at the office." I drove there just in time to see it happen. 2 sheriff's cruisers parked out front. Through the window, Karen paced behind her desk, shouting into the phone. The deputies entered, calm, professional. "Mrs. Holbrook, you're being served with a cease and desist and subpoena for financial records." She froze, color draining from her face. "This is absurd," she stammered. "I've done nothing wrong." They handed her the paperwork. "You'll have your chance to prove that. For now, step away from the computer." She turned on me, eyes blazing. "You did this. You and your wife. Outsiders who don't respect how this community works." I met her glare. "No, Karen. We respected it enough to save it from you." Outside, neighbors gathered, phones recording. Tom stood near his cart, relief softening his features. I walked over. "It's done," I said. He nodded. "Guess the neighborhood finally got the security it needed." I looked toward the oak gazebo where the first raindrops were starting to fall. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Real security. Truth." By that evening, the county had taken control of Crescent Hollow. The golden President Holbrook placard was gone. The HOA flags were taken down. The rules that once silenced everyone now hung torn and flapping in the wind. And for the first time since we moved there, the silence felt clean, not fearful, just peaceful. You spend long enough watching people abuse authority, you start to recognize the pattern. It never ends with power. It ends with paperwork, sunlight, and truth. That's what finally brings them down. Because in the end, control only works on the people too scared to speak until one of them finally does.